Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. I'm excited about this one. I've been wanting to talk about this one for a while. This is one of my all time favorite action films, 1984's The Terminator, from director James Cameron, a James Cameron masterpiece, only a second film after his debut film, Piranha 2. And this movie, of course, as we all know by now, I'm sure many of you know, this stars the great Arnold Schwarzenegger. At this time, Arnold was really making a name for himself because of Pumping Iron from 1976. You also have Conan the Barbarian and then Conan the Destroyer, which came out the same year as The Terminator. People out there that haven't seen this movie and will end up watching it, I just want to say to you all, as a movie lover, I am very envious of you guys. This was one of those first time watches for me that I will never forget. I remember being around 7 years old and just being very excited because I saw the advertisements for Terminator 2, and my older cousin was like, "Hey man, I got to show you the first one before that second one comes out." So before the second one came out back in 91, I remember it was around the summer of 1990 when I started seeing trailers for Terminator 2, and my cousin rented part 1 for me, and I remember watching it, becoming an instant fan of this film. The overall basic plot of this film centers around the character of Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, who is somebody that works as a waitress. She doesn't really have a lot going on. She has this little apartment she shares with her roommate, and she seems to be happy living life in the mid 80s. And there is somebody that shows up at this time that comes from the future, and then somebody else shows up and he's also from the future, and these two people basically are going to collide eventually, and Sarah is going to be smack in the middle. For those of you out there that have not seen this, I don't want to say too much in terms of details. You might know a few things from pop culture, but as far as specifics, I don't want to give away too much because a lot of the fun in watching this movie comes from not knowing a lot of the surprises and who's good, who's bad. The special effects in this movie were achieved by the late Stan Winston, who also did the effects for the dinosaurs, the animatronics in the original Jurassic Park, as well as the xenomorph in James Cameron's Aliens from 1986. And his work really stands the test of time, even here, even though there are going to be some shots of some of the effects that are going to look dated and going to be obvious to movie fans. Actor Michael Biehn does a very good job in this movie, very memorable as Kyle Reese, and he would also go on to appear in a couple of other James Cameron's classics, The Abyss and Aliens, and also he would appear in Navy SEALs and would play a Navy SEAL again in the 1996 Michael Bay action classic The Rock. And I really like his screen presence and his chemistry with Linda Hamilton in this film. Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor is one of the great heroines of the action movie genre. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger as the T 800 in a very memorable and iconic role, one that to this day he still gets a lot of praise for. And he's perfect for in terms of physicality and his movements and just the way he delivers his dialogue. It all feels very robotic. This movie also has one of the all-time great movie scores of all time, not just action movie scores from composer Brad Fiedel, who also did the music for movies like 1985's Fright Night. I believe he did the music for The Accused with Jodie Foster, The Serpent and the Rainbow, classic Wes Craven film. He did the music for Catherine Bigelow's Blue Steel. It just has that classic 1980s synth sound that really helps to lend to the atmosphere and also really helps to punctuate certain scenes in terms of the dramatic scenes or even elevating the excitement of the action sequences. The action sequences in this movie are very surprising. This movie has some hardcore action in it and some pretty violent scenes, the kind of stuff that we would come to expect from Arnold Schwarzenegger from this point on for years to come as action fans. And the violence even gets downright scary at times in terms of moments of suspense and stuff that leads to violent moments, and it's very well done. And James Cameron, from the very beginning of his career, knew how to stage action. The way that James Cameron is able to build suspense in some of the scenes in this movie is really brilliant in the way that they build the character of the Terminator to be this ultimate threat. And when we have our main character, Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton's character, in a public place, we assume that she might be safe, but then we see what the Terminator is capable of and that he has no qualms about doing anything out in public. And when we see that kind of thing, it really makes us fear for her life. As soon as Sarah Connor's life in 1980s Los Angeles is turned upside down because of these two visitors from the future, she's basically on the run for the entire movie. and it doesn't let up because, of course, it's a relentless chase from beginning to end. There's also a very memorable action scene, a shootout that takes place in a Los Angeles police station involving a bunch of cops and our Terminator. And of course, you have Linda Hamilton's character, Sarah Connor, fighting for her life. This movie is constantly moving, and it does stop for a little bit to have a little tenderness with our characters, and a little unexpected romance begins to blossom. And it's pretty interesting in terms of how it affects the overall plot and eventually future movies. Ever since this movie's release, so many other films by now have been influenced by the style of this movie, by the themes of this movie, by the way this movie executes its plot, the overall idea of a protector and a threat and somebody being in the middle of a chase that doesn't stop from beginning to end all throughout the film until it reaches an explosive climax. One of the all-time great films that has really paved the way for other action movies of the genre. 1984's The Terminator from director James Cameron. This is a 4-star classic, an unforgettable action classic, an unforgettable science fiction movie experience. Highly recommend you check this out if you have not seen this. If you're an action movie fan, or a science fiction movie fan, or a fan of James Cameron's work, or a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, definitely seek this out. It is one of the all-time greatest films ever made, period. I've had a lot of copies of this movie throughout the years, the VHS copies, certain DVD copies, but this is the current copy that I right now own. This is the Blu-ray, not the original cover, but still a pretty badass cover. I think you get the point across with this image. This is one of those movies from the 80s that is still popular to this day, so I'm sure you can find this on streaming, on certain streaming services, but if you want to get yourself a hard copy while some are still out there, you can always look online. But 1984's The Terminator, one of those great action classics that is a must-see if you're a movie fan. Thank you all very much for watching this classic movie review. I always appreciate you. If you're into the classics, if you're into movies, if you're into this kind of thing, hit the bell, subscribe. Please don't forget to comment, share, like. It all really helps out. And if you're a returning viewer, I very much appreciate your support. Everybody take care of each other. God bless. Peace out.